Does watching porn cause erectile dysfunction? It's one of those questions that instantly divides the internet. Some people insist that porn has destroyed their sex lives. Others swear it's harmless or even helpful. The idea of porn-induced erectile dysfunction, or shortly known as PIED, has gone viral. But to be clear, PIED is not a clinical diagnosis, neither is porn addiction or sex addiction. So if you or your partner are struggling with erections and wondering whether porn might be part of it, take a breath. Let's look at what the research actually says, because as with most things related to sex, the truth is much more nuanced and a lot more interesting than a lot of the headlines. Before we get into it though, hi there, I'm Lauren Consul. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sex therapist here to help you have more satisfying and secure sex and relationships. Let's start with talking about what erectile dysfunction, or what I'll refer to as ED, is and isn't. Now, according to the DSM, ED is the persistent and recurrent inability to get or maintain an erection sufficient for partnered sexual activity, meaning it happens in most sexual experiences at least 75 to 100% of the time. And this has to be for at least 6 months, and a key component is that it has to cause the person distress. It also has to not be better explained by another mental health issue or medical condition, medication, or relationship distress. So basically, ED is a diagnosis when we've ruled everything else out. We also want to look at whether it's generalized, meaning it's happening across all experiences, or situational, meaning it's only happening in certain contexts with specific partners or in specific situations. Now, almost every penis owner at some point will have erection issues in their life. That is part of being human. Stress, grief, poor sleep, relationship tension, too much alcohol, diet, all of these affect arousal and our body functioning. And so that is not ED, that is life. It could turn into more erectile issues, because if there is a loop of, okay, I didn't get an erection this time and I'm feeling anxious about it, and then next time I go to have partner sex, I'm feeling anxious again, which feeling anxious makes it more likely to have erectile issues, and so on and so on. But that is for another video. I also want to note that this is not just an older person's problem. Research shows that between 14 and 26% of men from 18 to 35 experience some form of ED. So we need to stop pretending it's all about age so we can really address this, because a lot of times I'll have clients come in who are younger and saying, oh, I'm having these issues with my erections and I don't understand because I thought this was only when you got older. And no, it can happen at any point. And you may be having erectile issues, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a diagnosis of ED. Now that we know what we're talking about, let's turn to the question, does porn cause erectile dysfunction? Now, the answer is it's complicated. Some studies do show a link between problematic pornography consumption and a higher rate of erectile difficulties. But notice that word, problematic. Who decides what's problematic? It's the person using it. If a client comes in and tells me their porn use is a problem, the first thing I ask is, why do you think it's a problem? Is it because it's interfering with connection or work or sleep, or because they're feeling shame or guilt or anxiety? This helps us to understand better the relationship with porn, which is usually the issue to address, the relationship with porn, rather than just, oh, stop watching porn. Now, what about the impact on the brain? That is an argument we hear a lot. Porn is terrible for your brain. Now, our brains do adapt to the kind of stimulation that they get most often. And porn can offer what is called a supernormal stimulus, something that is more intense or novel or extreme than most real life experiences. And over time, the brain can start to rely on that intensity to feel aroused, which can narrow your arousal template, which means it may become harder to get aroused by less novel experiences. And this narrowing doesn't only happen with porn. It can happen if you always have sex in the same way, or with the same fantasy, or you rely on the same toy. The brain loves variety. It's how we stay responsive. The good thing, though, is that our templates can be reset and adjusted. So again, it's not the porn itself, it's our relationship with it, how we are using it, how we're feeling about it. Now, some penis owners report no problems with erections while watching porn, but have trouble staying erect with a partner. And people often jump straight to, see, porn is the problem. But let's slow that down, because humans are much more complex than that. And we need to ask, what kind of porn are they watching? Is it always the same scenario or type? Again, we're looking back at that arousal template. We also want to ask about the relationship issues, body image insecurities, or anxiety about performance. Things that may only show up in partnered sex versus solo sex, which are completely different experiences, psychologically and physiologically. So before we start to point fingers at the porn, we need to understand the whole context. Porn doesn't directly cause ED. That doesn't mean there isn't any correlation or relationship between it, because there can be a relationship between two things, especially when it feels problematic, distressing, or it's tied to shame. So the key isn't to demonize porn, it's to understand the context, how it's being used, how the person feels about it, and what's happening in their relationship and emotional life. And I also want to note that this video is not about whether the porn industry itself is good or bad. There are real issues in some parts of the porn industry: exploitation, unsafe conditions, lack of consent. But there's also a lot of really wonderfully ethically made porn that prioritizes consent and fair play, safety, and inclusion. And so that is for a different video of how we're talking about how to engage with porn. But again, this may come into how is your relationship with porn? How do you feel about it? How do you engage with it? The takeaway I want for today, though, is that porn doesn't cause ED, but the way that we relate to it emotionally and psychologically and behaviorally absolutely can affect desire and arousal and erectile issues. And we want to step away from simply pointing the finger as porn is bad, because that is too simple and doesn't allow us to actually address the issues that are present. Okay, now if this kind of conversation helps you make sense of your sexual experiences, I'd love for you to subscribe, share this video with someone who might need it, and let me know what questions you have in the comments below. Because remember, pleasure is not about perfection, it is about presence.